And that's Nathan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this joint meeting of the Kennebunkport Selectboard and the Kennebunkport Budget Board. This is our budget review. It's the first joint meeting of our budget season. Today is March 5th, 2026, and I'm calling the Select Board meeting to order at 6 p.m. We have two individuals on Zoom. I believe, do we have both with us?
Alan and Mary Beth.
So Alan and Mary Beth, if you could please let us know you are here.
I'm here.
I'm here, John.
Thank you both. And I will pass it on to our budget board to come to order.
We've already opened our meeting.
All righty, great.
So we're ready to roll.
So our budget board is present, accounted for, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of our budget volunteers present. And our first order then, let me please introduce, someone may not know, Miss Lori Smith. Lori's been with, okay, sir.
Thank you. So, as you know, tonight we are doing the budget board and the selectmen review of the overview of the budget in the first half of our operational budget. So in your booklet, you should have a schedule of the budget meetings. So for the next 4 Thursdays, we're going to talk about budget. So tonight we'll do an overview of the budget and the first half of the operational budget. Next Thursday, we will do the rest of the operational budget. And then the Board of Selectmen have a selectmen meeting after that. And then the following Thursday, I think it's the 19th, the review entails the capital budget, so we'll review capital. And we also will review social service agencies and outside agencies. And then the last Thursday in the month, the Select Board makes their recommendations on the budget. And we then send that out to the Budget Board the next morning. And then the following Thursday, which should be the first Thursday in April, the Budget Board meets to vote on their recommendations. So normally we have another week or two before we have to fine tune the warrant. But because of the way the timing is this year, the first meeting in April, the first regular meeting of the Select Board, they have to sign the warrant in order to meet the deadlines this year for elections in June. So we can meet as many times as people want, but we just got to be done by then. So to begin with, I'd just like to take a minute to go over the budget book. We've talked about the budget schedule. As you see, there are page numbers at the bottom of each page. The snapshots and I think the program budgets have it on the right side of the page because there wasn't room at the bottom, but you should find a page number on every page. The pink sheet and the sheet before the pink sheet are the directions to how to find what you're looking for. So the first white page with the table of contents explains how the book is set up. If you're wondering why it's set up the way it is, it's really due to an accounting chart of accounts, and that's how governmental accounting goes. So on the pink page, following that, you can look alphabetically. So if you're looking for a department or capital, it'll tell you the account number and what page you can find it on. So either way, you should be able to find it. The blue papers in the budget are the introduction to the budget. The yellow papers are the analysis and discussion of the budget. After that, you'll see these orange papers. This is just a summary of all of the department totals, so if you just want a quick look at a whole department total. After that, you have the purple papers, and the purple is the discussion of the capital along with the capital improvement plan, which was discussed in January. And then after that, the green papers are the revenue, because green's money, right? And then after that tab is the commitment, the estimated commitment. So after that, you will see the placeholders for all the categories. Under each one are the individual departments. You will find the snapshots for each department that we do. And there will also then be your program budget. So your program budget is something new we'll talk about this year. But it shows you the department budget by program. So the money is the same as your line item budget, but it's a focus on what programs we are actually accomplishing. So you have the name of the program, what the purpose of the program is, and then a rating. So you'll see at the top of your program budgeting page, it's a rating of 1 to 4. 4 is a mandated service, so that means it's either by federal or state law or town ordinance. And then the priorities are low to high. Low to high priorities can be a little subjective, and that's part of program budgeting. It helps you focus on what the priorities are. And so this is our first step in program budgeting. And the departments did a great job tackling this. And so a lot you can see of the costs are related to personnel, and those are broken out by the amount of time it takes to attend to those programs, along with the operating costs for each program. After that, you'll see the charts and graphs that show trends. And then you get into what we call our TRIO software program. This is the printout from that. It has the budget, the historical information, and then detail under each line item. So this is the line item budget. It has the year-to-date numbers for the fiscal year 2026, which we are currently in. The year-to-date numbers are effective of the date of printing of the budget, and that was February 19th. So it's about 66% through the year. At the back, we have the social service committee, so the nonprofit request. The budget committee has a social service subcommittee that makes their recommendation, and what you will find there is their recommendation in their memorandum, and then we included the applications for the nonprofit, so if you want to look at those, you can. Okay? Any questions on that? So first, I want to just thank my staff for all their assistance, especially with program budgeting. This was a new task they took on this year, and they took it on with grace and fortitude. It's important to recognize this budget is a huge piece of planning document that I do not do alone, and there's a lot of discussion at the department level. And I want to thank my finance director, Nicole Evangelista, and support services team led by Yanina Nicholas for helping put this all together. Tonight, as I said, we will review half of the operational budget with the departments, and then we will give more information. So the directors are going to talk this year about what's the programs their department does. They might highlight something different in that budget this year, and then they will focus on what I didn't put in the budget. Okay? So if there are particular things that you want to discuss that you think are different this year, then you absolutely raise your hand as we go, and they're happy to discuss those. But because we give you so much detail, we don't want to take your time going through each and every line item. But that doesn't mean we can't discuss it or can't answer any questions. Part of what we do when we go through the analysis in the yellow pages, there's a department by department, analysis. So if there are questions you have about a particular increase, it's probably in those yellow pages. So with that, I am going to go to start the budget presentation. So let's just see if this works. Yeah, it sure does. So tonight we're going to do the FY27 budget presentation. Our hope is that this will be a discussion of our priorities, what trade-offs, and what policy questions that you might need to answer. So as we discuss each year, this is a 6-month process, really, beginning in December. Here we are in March, and then in June there is actually a vote on the budget. Here are our town demographics that we update every year. You can see that we haven't changed a whole lot since last year, but I did think there was a couple of interesting trends. So Kennebunkport, as this graph shows, in 2020 when they did the census, lost population actually, or that's what they reported. You'll remember that was the year of COVID, and doing census counts was a little crazy. But what we noticed was through COVID and the years following that we felt like we were gaining population. Not great strides, but we saw additional births, we saw new home builds, we saw voter registrations tally. And so this new information from the census backs that up, that we actually have seen a growth in population. Not tremendous, but it has been a growth. The other thing I just thought, we talk a lot about the median age of Kennebunkport. So the green is the United States, blue is the state of Maine, and then yellow is Kennebunkport. And you can see that we did actually continue to see our age increase. We're just about a median age of 60 now. Here's the town organizational chart. So this just shows you all the different services we provide. And of course, we do not provide these services alone. We do fund other areas, so certainly the school department, Lewis T. Graves Memorial Public Library, the Atlantic Hall Cape Porpoise Library. KEMS is our emergency medical provider. Southern Maine Planning is a planning partner and our sustainability coordinator partner, and of course the town of Kennebunk. So the goals I had for this budget year were, one, that I come in with a flat municipal tax rate, and that we look at service stability, maintain our fiscal discipline, and that we have transparent trade-offs, and that we also start this program-based framework for budgeting. So that's what we were focused on this year. So we talked a little bit about program budgeting. Why program budgeting? So rather than focus on, you know, how many bullets we bought or how many contracts we have for XYZ, it's really about what are we providing, who are we providing it for, and why are we doing it? So answering those questions in each program allows us to have a conversation with the select board as well as the budget board about what are the things we're doing and is it really costing to do that particular program. And then as we align that to our strategic plan and our values and priorities, we get to start to make choices about whether or not that's where we want to spend our resources. Sometimes it's not about cutting money, but it's about where do you want to spend those resources and where do you want to focus. Other times you look at programs and you say maybe that program could be done better by an outside agency, such as with trash collection, which is what we do. It also makes trade-offs more visible, and it improves the policy level decision making rather than focused on individual line items. Hopefully it improves the public understanding about what we're doing and why it costs money to do those programs. And then it gets us focused on our performance outcomes. So how do you know if a program is being successful? How do you measure that outcome? Some of these programs are challenging because we're not measuring widgets, but if we look at public health, for example, and visiting people in their homes, how do we know that's successful, especially when some of that evidence is HIPAA, and so we can't necessarily share every outcome. So those are some questions we need to ask. The other thing is by focusing on programs, we're really talking about how we as a town make those programs successful, and so it encourages cross-department collaboration. As I said, program budgeting helps us organize around the services rather than just the expenses. So I went through an example of a program budget already, but just to put it up here, here's the administration program budgeting. You can see the programs we have to the left, their purpose, and what priority rating. So for example, I gave communication and public information a rating of 3. So this is one of these ones where I was like, well, some of the communications we do are required by state statute, and that would require a 4-level rating. But some of them are ones we do just because we want to communicate, and they could be anywhere from a low priority in someone's mind to a high priority. So some of these are combinations. You know, governance and board support, so making sure our committees and boards are prepared for our meetings and decision making. I wouldn't say that's mandated by anywhere besides the public notice that we must give for meetings, but it certainly makes for a more productive outcome, and to me that's a high priority. And you can see the personnel costs and operating costs associated with those. So that just gives you insight into that. So overall, the budget is, and I'm talking about the municipal budget only, is $14.86 million. The expenditure increase is just over 2.5%. We are seeing revenue growth of 4.5%. Like I said, we're coming in with a 0% municipal tax rate. We do have an estimated education and county budget of an additional 5%, although I don't have any numbers from either of those agencies at this time. So as we talk about every year, where does the money go? So as you can see, almost half goes towards education. The county is another 6%. What's left, we really split between personnel, benefits, supplies, and capital. So what are the budget drivers this year for the expense side? So those include salaries, which is not a surprise since we are a labor-driven organization. We have technology improvements, legal costs that are up, equipment, and the public restrooms at Dock Square. So those are the expense drivers. So where does the money come from? As we've discussed, the majority of revenue in the state of Maine for municipal budgets comes from property taxes, since we don't have other revenue sources of weight. But you can see the other revenue sources that we do have available and use. Here are the revenue changes of any significance that we've seen. So we've increased excise tax revenue. Homestead exemption, we anticipate to go up. We are getting more interest on taxes as interest rates increased. Parking violations, we actually saw, it wasn't a decrease in FY24, any FY25, but it was a decrease in what we anticipated in FY26 because we had increased violations costs. Goose Rocks beach permits, again, this was a decrease because we had estimated we would go up to $395,000 in FY26, but we didn't. And so we're seeing a $60,000 reduction in our proposed collection there. Investment income, we've done well in, so we've increased that. The Dock Square transfer, you know, those are for eligible expenses, and there are just fewer capital expenses eligible. We have the transfer of recreation special revenue for programs and fees, and that's increased. And the Pick of It Trust is a trust fund that benefits public health and police. And so this year, funding was available to fund the public health vehicle, so we are including that, but there weren't funds for the police side. And then we've increased the transfer of the capital reserve account for what we'll talk about for the use of town hall renovations. And I just wanted to stop for a minute because when I talk about transfers, and you'll see on your commitment sheet, you know, TI, that's a transfer in. So these are some other funds that we transfer into the general fund. So the capital reserve fund is the amount of money that's above our fund balance number, that after the audit each year, the board puts funding away in there just so we know it's available. It still requires a town meeting vote. We have about $2.5 million in there currently. The Pick of It Trust is a trust fund where the earnings we have on that are available for police and public health equipment and needs. The Recreation Special Revenue Fund is for all the programs and services that the rec department provides. So the revenue and expenses come in and out of that fee fund, and then we transfer some of that over each year to offset the general fund salary costs. The Dock Square parking lot is an enterprise fund for the operations at Dock Square, and so all those parking fees go in there and all the expenses come out, and then we transfer over to offset expenses in the general fund. And the same is true with the wastewater fund. Because it is a department of the town, finance and other costs are associated within the general fund budget, and so wastewater offsets some of that cost. So all of those go towards the general fund municipal operations, and they're accounted for in the revenue side. So on revenue growth, you'll see in the chart here, we have seen revenue grow. We've talked a little bit about those revenues that we saw change this year. Debt payment schedule, there is no planned additional debt, and we're actually seeing a 1% reduction in debt service, and that's really just as our bonds age, the interest level has decreased. So what are some things that are in the budget this year that we're investing in? One is fire staffing. The number of call volume is up and the number of hours. that we have budgeted have increased. Computer-aided dispatch, the police chief will talk about that. So we have a software program that allows us to dispatch 911 calls, and we need to replace that. Police will also talk about Maine Law Enforcement Accreditation Program, which is new this year, and equipment for public safety. We also are investing in fleet, facilities, and signage. We also will see, especially with development permitting, we're looking at investing in process improvements and software. And then legal is a big investment this year, as we're seeing that increase for the risk that we have as a governmental agency. And then the last one is our restrooms. So Dark Square Restrooms has a contract for cleaning services. The long-standing person who was doing that for us has retired, and we need to find a new vendor, and we anticipate that will cost us more. We're also doing quite a few renovations at the restrooms this winter, and so we could keep it open longer. So any of the fees we have for the restroom cleaning, though, are offset by a transfer in from Dark Square revenue. So when I talked about what's not in the budget, so you remember that my goal was a municipal tax rate of 0. So you don't get there by adding things in the budget. So what I've tried to outline in my budget presentation are, these are reductions that I made in the budget that are worth discussion. So there are other reductions I made in the operating budget that I don't think are worth our time to talk about. But these are some of those items, and so you'll hear those as we go through those departments. The same is true with some of these capital reductions that I made and those decisions, and to talk about those as we go through the capital budget. So overall, here's the capital budget from FY23 to FY27, the use of capital reserve, and then the capital impact on the budget. So you can see with the use of our reserve funds, we're looking to lower the impact on the budget this year. Our capital strategy is, as usual, on facilities, roads, sidewalks, fleet, equipment, technology, and reserves. So especially like our fire truck reserve account, our highway equipment reserve account, so that we can plan the spending out. So as I stated, we have stable debt, no new borrowing, and our bond rating is still in good stead. The last time we went out for a bond sale was in 2024, and this is our rating that we received from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Here is our debt analysis. So the blue bars are the ones that we currently have in terms of what is anticipated in the future. There are 2 bonds that we're looking at for the future. One is a $6 million wastewater bond to upgrade wastewater pump stations. And there is the potential for a $4.8 million bond to upgrade this fire station we're in. Those are both projected for 2030, so they're not immediate, but I want you to be aware of them as we look at the budget. Also remember that as we make these choices, we're trying to balance short-term need and gain from long-term need and gain. So let's not make decisions, because every time I do a budget, I'm always thinking, how will this impact the next year's budget? Because we're not living in a silo. So just an overview, here's FY27 to FY31. These are capital improvements that may be needed. You can see infrastructure is a big part of that, and that wastewater I talked about is part of that, as well as buildings, facilities, and equipment. And then remember that we don't do everything by the operational budget. So funding sources for capital can come from the operational budget, they can come from grants, they can come from bonds, and they can come from reserve accounts. So we look for all of those as we make choices. As always, I'd just like to review that, how we come up with the property tax rate is we look at the budget we need, we subtract the non-property tax revenues, and we divide that number by our total taxable valuation. And that gives us a tax rate. That tax rate is then applied to each individual home and property value, and that gives you the property tax for that particular home. Some people think that when valuation increases, that we gain more revenue. And so this is just to show you that we don't. So in this case, in this example, the budget would be 25 million. Our non-property revenue, non-tax revenue is 5 million. So we need $20 million. So in the example on the left, the valuation is 2 billion. In the example on the right, the valuation is 3.5 billion. When you take that 20 million and you divide it by the associated valuation, you can see how the tax rate changes. So on the left, the tax rate is $10. On the right, the tax rate is $5.70. Two different tax rates, and they both only give you 20 million in property taxes. So we're not gaining more than what is approved by the town. So as we talked about, here is the estimated tax commitment. It is in your commitment tab. So the proposed FY27 budget mill rate is $6.9316. So that is the ghost of Christmas future. If all things were to stay as they are, then that's what would happen. But keep in mind, we don't have a real education number or a county number at this point. The municipal mill rate is estimated to be $2.45, the same as last year. So some of the policy questions that we go over as we talk about what I didn't put in the budget. So we talk about, should we maintain these service levels at their current place, or do they need to be adjusted? You're going to hear a little bit about fire and police public wellness programs for employees and how that didn't go in the budget. We're going to talk about workforce development and training and how that wasn't included in the budget. Some of these infrastructure needs, transportation facility, and the capital I delayed. There were committees, such as the Shade Tree Committee, that I did not include their requested increase to do more cutting and pruning. What's the appropriate level of reserve and fund balance that we should put towards this budget? And what's the right amount of legal costs that we should strengthen for our governance and risk management programs? So at that point, I'm just going to stop and see if anybody has any questions. I want you to know we slimmed this presentation down this year. I hope you got a cushion, making this smooth. Any questions? Yes?
In the capital budget, if a town hall were to be proposed, that would show up in the future in that budget. It's not in there now, a new town hall.
So in the capital improvement plan, I had put in January for renovations at Town Hall. And so I'm going to talk about that when we get to capital, but I am recommending we do renovations at 6 Elm Street. And that is a conversation, a policy conversation. Does that make sense? We have brought 2 questions forward at 2 different sites. The committees worked hard to try and address the issues, and they were voted down both times. So I do need to do something because there are many repairs at Town Hall that we have been prolonging, including the roof and the HVAC system. And, we have buckets and we're catching rainwater and the HVAC system is flooding. So it's time for us to address those. I need to do that, and I need to make a little space for the employees that are there. So at the very least, I'm proposing in this budget that I spend $1 million on renovating the current town hall. So if the select board and budget board don't think that's a wise use of money or that we should do something different, that's a policy discussion.
Thank you.
I have a question. So last year, the school budget got voted 3 times, but we had to do our commitment before the last. So on the commitment page, there's $200,000 that apparently we collected more than what the school budget was.
So if you all go to your commitment tab, which is what page you put?
71.
71. So on the top, you will see what we normally do for the commitment. So you'll see all the expenses, and you'll see that in yellow is county and school, and it's in yellow because we don't have real numbers, those are estimates. And then we have the revenues underneath that. And then I show you in the gray box what the tax commitment will be. So that under that is another yellow box that says budget adjustment. So that 200,000 thereabout is partially because we committed before a school budget got passed, and so there was funding that we overcommitted. And then there was an audit adjustment regarding the homestead reimbursement. So those total that 200,000. If the board were to decide to put those towards the tax commitment this year, then you can see the impact. So I just tried to separate it for you so that we don't confuse that piece with the regular budget. But that would, based on this scenario, it would make it a flat tax rate across the board.
So is this money in fund balance?
Yeah. Well, it's not yet because it's still in the year, but yes, it will be.
That's where it will be.
Yeah.
So if we took it out, the mill rate, the adjusted mill rate would be 688 instead of 693. Is that what?
If the school and county numbers came in like that, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was that understandable to people?
Yeah, I was wondering how you got from the 698 to the 688, or,
Yeah.
Six, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, we're gonna carry forward.
Excuse me.
All right, so if you go to page 95, under your tab of general government, you will see administration. So the town demographics and stats are there, as well as the stats for the town manager and support services. So administration includes the town manager's office, support services, finance, and town clerk. Okay? And we're going to go over the programs. So here are the town manager and support services. You can see that we do a lot with communication, social media, overseeing all the employees in the town, and doing all the HR as well. So here, as I talked about, are the under town manager finance support services is our makeup. And here's some of our programs. So some of the programs we take on is communications and public information. So that's our newsletter, our town report, that's the website, that's Facebook and Instagram, that's making sure that public notices go out to people, that we keep news updated. It's also governance support, so all the support we give the select board, and doing constituent services as well as other board support. And you can see Dave smiling from the booth there. Some of the other programs we do in this department include human resources, employee support, and information technology. So certainly they put all the major training on, safety training for all the staff. They oversee all the benefits. They do the special events for employees each year. There's Dave filming for wastewater, helping do all the AV and IT support. And you can see in the middle, that's when we did our Alice training on a shooter at one of our facilities, and Shane Brooks was leading us in that. That was quite eye-opening. Other programs we do include organizational leadership and legal and risk management. So certainly making sure that we have leadership training, people prepared to take on leadership roles. Here is Tracy winning the Town Clerk of the Year award this past year. Overseeing the ordinances and making sure that we are abiding by those as well as state statutes. The list on the right is some of the mandated programs. There's like 17 pages of mandated programs that the state has municipalities take charge of. We also make sure that we're all there to make any program happen. So you can see on the left, everybody gathered to put flyers in bins when we did the rollout of the automated waste. So all hands on deck, and that's another great example of cross-department collaboration. Another thing our department does is grant application, administration, and project management. So you can see we've got the Cape Porpoise Pier. We have a meeting with the climate resiliency and the climate action plan that we did, reaching out to businesses and residents. The government wharf project we did, where we got grant funding for that. You'll see the new tidal gauge that was installed at Government Wharf with our Kennebunk River study. So looking at the water heights and how the tide is changing. And our Pier Road Causeway project and that success. And then we recently received a grant on the head of the harbor, and we're studying the impacts of that. So we've been very fortunate to receive quite a few grants. The other thing we oversee are our community partnerships and community events and celebrations. So sometimes we're working with Parks and Rec or Public Health or some of those service groups like the Rotary Club, whether it's, you know, picking up at the beach or cleaning up in various areas of town or at the parks, making sure that people are connecting with departments like at the National Night Out or at our community open house or celebrating our volunteers at the volunteer recognition event. So what is not in the administration budget? What is not in the administration budget that I reduced was $10,000 for training and travel. So these are some reasons why training and travel is important. We have an organization that really supports training, whether that be higher education or on-the-job training, because we have found that that's really what employees of today are looking for, and it makes them better suited for their jobs. But in the goal of a 0% tax rate, this was reduced, and so we will have employees who will not be able to benefit from that this year. So one other thing that you will see, I would say the biggest increase in the admin budget is to deal with the audit costs. So the audit costs are projected to go up by $16,000. Part of that is because of the costs associated, labor costs with doing the audit. What we're seeing is in municipal services, the pool is shrinking of available vendors to do this kind of work, whether that be legal or auditing. And also with the grants we've received, there are additional criteria that we must meet for those audits, and that costs additional funds. So is there any questions on that? If not, we're going to go to finance and town clerk, which is still under that general government administration. If not, Nicole, you're up. Come right up here, Nicole.
All right, the finance department oversees town's finances across 6 budgets collected, and we collected $70.7 million in calendar year '25. With the staff of 3, the department manages payroll, vendor payments, tax billing, financial reporting. We processed 52 payrolls, 3,962 invoices over 826 vendors, and we issued 232 W-2s, 35 1099s. The team also supports 4 grants and administers the Tax Club program, which now has 82 participants. This slide shows the finance department, which is led by the finance director and supported by a payroll clerk and accounts payable receivable clerk. Together, this team manages payrolls, vendor payments, revenue collection, and the town's financial reporting. The finance program budget totals $316,238, and we have 6 programs: budgeting and financial management, capital reserve contributions, contingency and insurance allocations, payroll processing, accounts payable and accounts receivable, and annual billing of taxes and sewer. This slide shows the program breakdown. And it's broken down across the 6 core functions. About 40% supports budgeting and financial management, 48% supports payroll and vendor payments, and 12% supports the revenue billing. The financial planning and risk management. This portion of the budget supports financial oversight, development of the town's annual budget, and long-term financial planning. It also includes capital reserve contributions and insurance allocations that protect town assets and ensure operational stability. Revenue and operational support functions. These programs support town's daily financial operations, including payroll processing, vendor payments, annual billing of taxes and sewer, which ensure accurate payments and reliable revenue collections. Any questions?
Always leave them wanting more, Nicole. I think Tracy's up.
Good evening, Tracy O'Rourke, Town Clerk, for those who don't know me. So if we take a look at this snapshot slide, it will demonstrate that our small office of 3 handles a wide variety of functions, most of which are done on behalf of state agencies. We process transactions for Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, Department of Motor Vehicles, Secretary of State's Office, Department of Vital Statistics, Liquor Division, Department of Marine Resources, and the Department of Agriculture. The ability for us to handle these types of transactions is a benefit and service to our residents. In addition to the state programs, we also administer town functions that include tax and sewer payments for all the properties in town, Goose Rock's beach parking stickers, Dock Square chaser tickets, and shellfish licenses. Not to mention the thousands of phone calls and walk-in customers that we get every year, just asking general questions and questions about the town and also the services that we offer. We are the go-to when people walk in Town Hall. As you can see, we do have a staff of 3. There's myself, the town clerk, and then 2 assistant town clerks, Brian Nicholas and Ann Cretion. And they've both been with us for about 2 years. It'll be 2 years in May. And they're fabulous. They've picked up really quickly, and they are really good at customer service. So I'm sure you've all dealt with them at one point or another. So if we generally categorize our duties and responsibilities into the programming budget, this slide shows you the various types of services that we offer. And with this wide range of services comes the responsibility to stay up to date on the latest procedures and law changes for each of these divisions. Each system requires specific training, and we try to attend that training each year because laws change really fast and the state is always changing the way that they want us to do things. So we have 3 top high-cost programs that take the most of our time. The first one is collection of taxes and sewer payments. and motor vehicle registrations. And then also elections, you don't want to forget about those. Elections training is mandated by state statute for every 2 years, and with all the other trainings that we do, we rotate through the office so that we all get the training that we need and we take turns attending. And as a team, the clerk's office is committed to providing the best service to our residents and the guests of the town. We're always looking to improve efficiency and productivity within our office, and we appreciate the support that's been shown to us in the past budget cycles, and we're hoping for your support again this year. So thank you. Are there any questions? Yes.
Good question. Of the $10,000 that Lori is cutting out of the training budget, how much of that is coming out of your budget? Because a lot of your training is mandated.
It is mandated, yes.
None of it is coming from town clerk.
Nothing is coming out of town clerk budget? Okay, good.
April's taking care of her own, I see.
Yes, I love that.
Why I'm here.
And for those who don't know, April is my predecessor, and she was an excellent teacher, and she's also been a good resource over the past 10 years. I believe it's been 10 years.
It'll be 10 years in June.
So, yeah, so, yeah. I know. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
So, page 109 is where you'll see the legal budget. So we contract out for legal services. Most of our services come from Drummond Woodsum in Portland, although we do hire specialty attorneys when the need arises. You'll see that we put in an additional 50,000. So last year's or this current year's budget is 100,000. We put in an additional 50. I've already spent all of the legal budget this year due to increased costs, but also increased litigation. A lot of this litigation is not ones that I can predict are going to happen. A lot of them are related to land use issues. And we sometimes get pulled in to issues that are really between neighbors. But we get named and have to defend the town. So the question is, what's the right number? Originally, when I put my proposed budget together, I put 175,000 in instead of 150. But when I went to my zero tax rate, I took 25,000 out of this. What is FY27 going to bring for legal? I do not know, but it seems to have increased quite a bit. So that's a question. Any question on legal? Yes.
Yes, hi, my name is Elizabeth Conrad. I'm new to this group, so hello. At what point does the town need, at what point should the town consider employing a town attorney as an employee, a generalist attorney who can handle a lot of the sort of basic day-to-day stuff, and that person then would help to discern whether something needs more expensive, specialized legal context and review?
Yeah, so there are few communities in Maine who have an attorney on staff, mostly because of the cost. So certainly if we were to bring an attorney on board, you know, we're probably spending a couple $100,000 once salary, benefits and everything are included. And then on top of that, we would need additional specialty. And so we could do that, but right now it seems like it would be a higher cost.
And I think what happens in a lot of organizations is it's not necessarily to employ a full-time attorney. There are a lot of people who are not interested in full-time work. I just put it out there.
Yep.
At in-house counsel, sometimes, at some point, the break-even
Yep, and we've
is worth looking at.
yeah, we've talked about that over the past couple of years in staff. Is it's like where does that point start
Yep.
to look like?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, Nicole's going to do insurance.
So on page 111 of the book is the insurance tab. It's under general government. So the total budget for insurance this year is $261,697. This, oops, I have to change the slide. This slide highlights several adjustments in employee benefits and insurance. The retirement health savings plan increased due to employee longevity, while the health reimbursement account decreased due to coverage changes. Unemployment insurance increased due to a formula change within MMA self-funded program. Insurance cost also increased, including liability insurance due to higher anticipated exposure, fleet insurance reflecting newer equipment such as the ladder truck, and a standard increase in public officials' liability coverage. Any questions?
How much was the increase, Nicole? It just helps me.
It was, I think it was like one, it was low. Off the top of my head, sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was quite low.
$3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
I was trying to think of the percentage. Any other questions?
Good evening, everyone. Yanina Nicholas, Director of Support Services. I will be talking a little bit about community development part of the budget. So this is just a little snapshot of my department because overall the budget is spread between multiple lines. So this is just a little piece of the budget. A lot of my department's functions are covered under administration, and Lori did address those. But I want to talk a little bit about this because I feel like this hasn't been recognized as it should be, because every department director thinks their budget is the most important. So this is the most important budget you'll see. So the community development budget. Development Department supports communication and engagement across throughout town departments with AVTV. So Dave out there, that's his piece. Through website, through communications with through the newsletter. So anything to do with communications and broadcasting videos is this piece here. So the budget focuses on maintaining reliable communication tools, and you will see, and we will discuss, we will have a conversation about AVTV equipment, but this will happen during the capital presentation. So in this piece, the increase is mainly due to personnel. We don't have much of the increase on the website, newsletter. It's mostly personnel and supplies, I would say. Do you have any questions about this piece, this very important budget here that you see? No? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, all. Galen Widley. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the town of Kennebunkport. Like Yanina, she has an important budget. I believe that I'm your favorite budget, and I'll go and explain why. So this is a quick snapshot of our department. What does this tell us? A story. I always like to cover the two graphs on this slide in particular. One is our increase in subdivision and site plan review. So the planning board has been very busy this past year, and it doesn't seem like there's any signs of stopping. And so that requires a lot of support staff services from the department. But at the very low, the lower graph, you'll notice there that those are our plumbing permits and our building permits. And you can see that on average, it does stay on a flat line. So what does that mean? It means that we can predict with some accuracy what our revenue is coming into the town. Moving to what is comprised of the department. So we have the director, myself, and then we have Kimmy, the admin assistant. And then codes and planning coordinator is our person. It's Nadia that does the short-term rental, as well as a lot of land use permit review when it goes to the planning board level. So she helps me out with that. Code officer is Derek Stevens, and our half-time building inspector is Greg Reed, and then we have the assessor, Becky. And so what is planning and development programs? I'd like to try to break them into 3 buckets for you. So we have the codes, functions, we have planning, and then we have assessing. And then I'll break down those individual sections just to explain those programs to you. For codes and planning first, and this is why I think the budget board, I would like to know, we are your favorite department. We are a revenue neutral department in operations. So what does that mean? It means we bring in that red pie slice that Lori showed at the very beginning of non-tax revenue that comes into the town. So any kind of building permit revenue, plumbing permit revenue, short-term rental licensing revenue, that's all going into that bucket, and it's helping to fund our operations. So we are not a burden to the taxpayer directly. It's more by the users that come through our office. And then you're seeing a breakdown
But they
here.
are responsible for the legal budget mostly.
We are. Even with legal, I believe we still cover it. But yes, as Lori mentioned, that is another cost that is an unknown that we do also help fund.
I
as a
reiterate
department.
my suggestion.
So as you can see on this page right here, we have the overall breakdown of all the codes and planning programs for the department. The first one is codes specifically. So we have code enforcement and building inspections. So that's any kind of building permit that you have in town, plumbing permit application. Those inspections are all done through that program line item. Then we also have the short-term rental licensing program, which is separate. And again, we have a separate personnel that handles that. And so that is all part of the codes enforcement line overview. And so we have some action shots of some of the inspections that we do out in the field or plan reviews in the office. So code enforcement always does building plan reviews. And then when it comes to land use, that's where I step in as the director. You'll notice here in this line item specifically, you'll see the increase in software through GovWell. And so that is a expense we had last year that was paid through capital, but now it's an ongoing expense that we're going to have. We just went live with it this year with planning and zoning permit review, and later this year we're going to have for building permit applications. I think you're going to be very pleased with the new system moving forward for submitting applications. And I think contractors are going to be very happy as well, because it shows you status updates of where you're at in the process. The other program is, again, short-term rentals. So again, we have a separate software system that handles just short-term rentals, and yes, I have tried to explore, is there one software that just does it all? And does it work with finance well? And I haven't found that magic unicorn program. But this program specifically, what's interesting about it is it goes out and scrubs the internet for listings of people to make sure that they're in compliance with our short-term rental licensing program. And it's made it very easy for staff that we haven't had to hire additional staff to manage just all those postings. So it's all about efficiency in our department. The planning breakdowns are listed right here. Again, everything that deals with land use ordinance, planning, floodplain management ordinance, this is all within this bucket area for our operations. Basically, if it requires a plan, it's probably going through this bucket. So where we spend the majority of our time as a department is generally with support staff for plan reviews, ordinance updates, answering people's questions. They tire kick what they want to do on their property for land use wise. We're the people that handle those questions in the office. The next program line item is flood and climate planning. And so in this area, we have the Climate Resiliency Committee. We also do some fun projects with SMPDC, such as the tidal gauge that you see up there with the harbor master. And then you'll notice that this line item also handles any type of climate. Because of our climate action plan, we have been able to secure a significant amount of funds, grant funds, just like when the governor announced the $75,000 for Colony Beach. All that comes from our climate action plan in our committee. They want to see that you actually have a plan for how you want to address climate resiliency in your community. The biggest one that people are interested in, and it is a requirement if we want to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, is the enforcement and administration of our floodplain management ordinance. And so that's done through the code enforcement officer when there's new building permit applications that are in the flood zone, that we have to make sure they're in compliance of our ordinance. Our next program line item is all about the maps, I'd like to say, and that's our GIS management for the town. This is done through our contracted services with CAI Technologies, as well as some of my own staff in-house that I help build some of the shape files that we can show information. So what you're seeing here on the left-hand side, this is our newest shape file that I've been working on. It is the historic districts for Kennebunkport. So this will be a new layer that we will be adding to our public portal later this year to help educate people on if they're in the historic districts of the town. But I think this is a resource that a lot of people do use in town. If you haven't had a chance to use it, please let me know. I'm more than willing to do demonstrations to share how useful and valuable this tool is, and it's free. There's no charge for residents to use it and contractors to do better planning on their properties. So what was not in the budget? We had two line items, again, similar to what Lori mentioned earlier. Training there was a degree program that was of interest. And then the CAI data conversion, and I will explain that. It gets a little wonky, but I will try to make it as easy as possible. So I did this demonstration to show what CAI data conversion. CAI is that contractor that we use for GIS services. Currently, when we contracted with them many years ago, they just took whatever data we had, and there's like different columns of the data, and it was just what we had at the time. So what CAI is doing now is they're rearranging that data to be compliant with their format, and in doing so, that's going to cut the cost and staff hours necessary for them to implement any updates. So why is this important? You're going to hear from other departments, not just this department, that are utilizing that data from CAI as part of a REST service. And what that is it's a link that software is using to pull information from our assessing records. And they're using that as like the property address, the owner information, some acreage information. That's all being pulled from Vision, which is the assessing. And so what we have done in the past as a town is that we have only done data updates once a year. And it's whenever we have to update the assessment records. That's fine when you're just doing taxes, but now that so many other software are being integrated with the town, we have to update this information more periodically to make sure that when people come in for a building permit application, the correct property owner's information is in, the lot split has been created, so there's going to be a lot more cost associated with that. So I did break down the annual cost for you, just to give you a sense of what does this all mean. So currently we spend on average about $5,500 a year, and it's based on an hourly cost. So it depends on how complex the issues are, but on average I've been getting you about $5,500 is what we've been spending. And so each time that we send them a packet of information, and that's usually once a year, it costs us $500 to make those updates. But because we have to do it on a frequency of probably once a month, that's going to be a significant cost. So you're seeing that $11,500 difference there. By us converting to the CAI conversion and spending that $21,000 in investment, well, $23,000 in investment, you're noticing that we get a flat rate of $4,600 per year that we are spending for CAI, and there is no additional cost for monthly updates. We could send them weekly if we wanted to. There's no additional cost because the data is now aligned with CAI and it's cut down on the labor aspect. So I have estimated it's going to be about 3 years and a third to get a return on our original investment, but I think it's an investment worthwhile for the town, and it's certainly worth a policy discussion. The other section, again, is the travel and training line item. And again, as Lori noted, I think it is worth a policy discussion. I cited a ICMA study that showed that 27% of respondents in the ICMA, and that's the City Managers Association. So they did a survey of employees to better understand millennials, especially and Gen Z, what's of value and a priority for them. And so 27% thought that they agree that they are feeling well appreciated, but there was still 27% that did not feel financially secure with their job position working in town and city government. And they cited 70% of them reported debt as the problem for having financial health. A lot of millennials and Gen Z do have a lot of financial debt. And so that that training aspect, that line item, does make an impact on retention of talent that we have in Kennebunkport. So with that, I will ask if there's any questions before I move into assessing.
Yeah, and I think it's just good to note that Galen's budget is actually a decrease this year, both because of some equipment purchases in the current year budget that aren't necessary next year, but also because the sustainability coordinator position we share through SMPDC, they are reworking that formula, and so now we've seen over a $20,000 reduction in our cost for that.
Yes.
I got a quick question. Lori, so on the training, did we cut all training, or is it just a reduction of training for each department?
No, we did not cut all training, but there was a reduction in terms of the request for training.
And then I have a question for Galen on the CAI, the 21,700. Is there another something else that you're doing within your budget that you would trade off for this one?
Not that I can think of right now. Again, I think we have a pretty lean budget overall, and I think I've made it pretty realistic as a department, knowing full well that we have additional legal costs that we don't know what that anticipated cost will be, but we do think that our permit revenue is helping to offset that.
Thanks, Galen.
Yep, yeah.
Do you feel you have enough money for training in the current proposed budget?
I'm advocating for the 8,000. I think we could use that investment to retain especially our younger talent in staff right now. So I would welcome that policy discussion with the board.
Galen, could there be a possibility of some of the short-term rental fees or some of the other fees being very slightly increased to generate a little bit more cash for you to do some of this training?
It's a possibility.
Okay.
Yes.
The conversion, this CAI conversion you're talking about, is there an obvious financial benefit to the rest of the town departments as a result of making that investment?
It is, especially if there are other software programs that need up-to-date information more frequently than once a month. It would be to everyone's benefit that we can send as many updates as possible. So when the assessor gets the deed transfers, she normally just keeps them on a stack, and she just waits until closer to that time frame. She has other things she's working on at that time, and then once a year we send those in. Certainly, we can send them more frequently, depending on how often other departments, if they need more up-to-date information. I said about once a month. I think that's realistic to send for updates, but it all depends on emergency services. If they need data up to date a lot more quickly, we can certainly work to get that information more readily available.
Thanks.
She would be doing the same amount of work, she would just do it in 12ths. She would just do it once a month instead of doing everything
Right.
once a year.
Yep.
So it doesn't increase her work
No.
to do it.
No. Yep.
How often does the state require an analysis of the town's properties? Didn't Kennebunk just go through that last year?
So we're going to assessment.
Yeah.
I believe the recommendation is every 10 years you should. But again, it also depends on how your ratios are for the state. So how is your assessment comparing with the state? That, they care about that as well. How fair are you being to the taxpayers in town? So it all depends. Some towns, they do once every 10 years and they're fine, and other ones, they every year, every 2 years. I know Scarborough, Falmouth, there's some other towns, they've had to constantly do adjustments over the years. Yeah. Okay, I can go into assessing then. So for the tax assessing, we have the one assessor. She does a mighty amount of work for the town, and deserve kudos and praises every day. So if you ever get a chance, please thank your assessor, because she does a great job for the town with the resources that she has currently. Some things I always like to highlight, every year we show you the slide of what the average sales price is. I always like to put a caveat here that is on qualified sales only. So, there are some years where maybe there's only one qualified sale, and that's the average. So sometimes these numbers do fluctuate over time, but it gives you a picture of what's happening in town.
Galen, what is water influence to me?
Go back.
Yeah.
The gray on the chart on the right?
Yep, that's the 2.2 mil. That's any waterfront influenced. So that's oceanfront. It's any ones that have ocean views, like that. That's part of that determination.
What's a qualified sale?
Qualified sale means it has to be listed for sale for a certain period of time. So it can't be. I know the one question that was asked was, there was one that was put on the listserv for 90 minutes. That was not a qualified sale because it was a butter that bought it. And if it was a private sale, that would not be on that list. So it's only ones that are on the listserv and they have been on for a significant amount of time. And that the assessor and the state do look at that to see what are qualifying sales.
Okay.
Yep.
You have the word oceanfront there.
Yep.
Does that exclude riverfront?
I believe that does, yeah. I would have to talk to the assessor on that one. That's a good question.
That's a pretty alarming chart. That's a pretty alarming chart.
Is it alarming? So this is, again, I have to preface that this is qualified sales. So that means there might be some years where we only had one sale, and it was a large amount, and then other years we've had a lot of sales, but then it's lower.
But I
But
think
when
that
you say
this,
that, Galen, you're also saying, you're really talking the ocean front.
Correct.
One qualified sale, because we've got 332 transfers, so we can't say that there's only been one qualified sale in town.
Correct,
So you're thinking more just the water.
right.
but I think this shows, because one of the things we have to look at is not only our ratio, but our quality. And so you can see that with single-family homes and condos, they're following a line generally, right? That waterfront is all over the place. And that is what tends to influence our quality ratio. So people make decisions on waterfront property that aren't always logical, and it's way all over the place.
Yeah. And I believe we, discussed this a little bit with capital improvement, and that's not for tonight. But we did discuss that there needs to be some market analysis done, especially for waterfront. So we recognize there needs to be a look at those areas.
If you can find me a waterfront home for $2.2 million, I'll buy it tonight.
Well, to
Whether
Joe's
qualified or
point,
not.
there actually is, there's a dispersion of waterfront home prices, right? So there's the Ocean Ave waterfront, Oceanside, and then there's, down at the beach. So there are homes down at the beach that are, in that zone of 2 million, which would be considered waterfront.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beach would be waterfront. Well, if it's on the beach.
Only the dude, that small
So,
little part of the beach.
With assessing, I'll just do a quick breakdown of what that program line item entails. So 5% of the time, Becky does E911. So if there is any numbering that needs to be done, any new units that are created, a new house or a new parcel, and they need an address, they work with with the fire chief and Becky and him do determine, what that number should be, and also any street names. So any new roads that want to come to town, we want to make sure that there's no confusion. And so that takes some of Becky's time to take a look at making sure that we're not having any confusion for emergency services perspective. 45% of her time is spent with property abatements, and no, she does not spend time doing actual abatements, but I think this bucket indicates all the communication she has with residents that come in and ask questions about their value. This is where her time is spent. By and large, she answers a lot of questions. She's a good resource. And I think it's a telltale sign that when the last major reval took place, she didn't have to go through the appeals process. And that's impressive for an assessor. That's an assessor that's doing her job and doing a good job communicating with residents on how she reached a determination on their value. So then 50% of the time she is doing task assessment and she's doing commitment. So she's going out in the field, she's looking at any new projects that are happening in town, any lot splits that are taking place. That's where that bucket line item falls into.
Question, if you were to do the conversion, for the CAI conversion, would we still be using Vision? Do we still have to use?
Yes.
Okay, so that
Yes.
would still be in there.
Yes, Vision is still the repository of the data.
Yeah.
That's where it all resides. And then when it goes to CAI to map it out, if we need to break out new parcels, that's where and any new data information, that's where that gets drawn to.
But they're setting up a system for that amount, right, that then runs, okay?
Yeah. Any other questions about assessing, planning, codes? All right, thank you all.
Good evening, everyone. Chris Simeone, Chief of Police. So this is just a snapshot of the police department. We're 15 full-time positions with the police department as far as sworn personnel. We have 4 dispatchers, 1 administrative assistant. And then we have 10 or so seasonal employees that we bring on for the summer months. On the right, you can see, these are just a few of the stats. So last year, there was a total of 67 arrests made. 11,574 dispatch calls handled, 11,243 police calls for service handled. So this is our organizational chart. So obviously we have the administrative assistant to the chief, the deputy chief, 3 sergeants positions, and then the officers fall under those sergeants. We also have a community resource detective. Her responsibilities are mixed, so she's does a lot of our public outreach, and she's also overseeing the behavioral health liaison. And then we have the dispatch supervisor, who oversees the 3 dispatchers. So programs that we offer. One is our patrol services. So these are our routine patrols, our traffic enforcement, response to calls for service, and then other public, order maintenance calls. Our criminal investigation. So these are our follow-up criminal investigations. Sometimes patrol will respond to a call for service, and these calls for service require some extensive investigation or extensive follow-up. So that's where the detective steps in and kind of takes these over, so that the patrol officers can be free to handle more calls for service. With that comes the evidence collection and management, case preparation and coordination with prosecutors, because that position, she is also the liaison to the court. So we also have the school resource officers. So right now we have 3 dedicated school resource officers that staff the Kennebunkport Consolidated School, the Kennebunk Middle School, as well as the Mildred L. Day School in Arundel. This is dedicated school coverage. They conduct a lot of the safety planning and drills, as well as, put on training of various types for each of the schools. They're there for, engagement with the students and start developing those relationships with them.
Just to note that the RSU 21 pays for their salary and benefits, so 75% of their costs are reimbursed while they're in the school year.
So our community policing and our outreach, these are just some initiatives that we've taken on to kind of get ourselves out there in the community so that everybody can kind of put, a face to a name, get to know us, feel comfortable having that partnership with our officers. So one example of this would be the National Night Out that we did this past summer for the first time. So, we do have aspirations of doing more, and you'll probably see more of that coming up. So administration and training, so that's kind of where myself and the deputy chief step in. These are the leadership and command positions, also the records management, fiscal and administrative support, and policy development and compliance. Our training and professional standards, so a lot of this is the mandatory training that we need to complete every year. Examples of this would be our firearms qualification, our taser qualification, and all the mandated training that is sent down via the legislature to us that we need to keep up on every year. And it's also elective training, so this might be classes that we send officers to for various specialties of interest, needs that we might have within the department that we'd like to see filled. So that's another program. So emergency management and planning, we work jointly with the fire department on a lot of this stuff. So one example would be Christmas Prelude. Awful lot of planning went into this as well as resources. Another example, this might be storm preparedness. If we were to have another storm like we did January a few years ago, this is where we would consider opening an emergency operations center and work together on that. And so our emergency response, these would be our responses to 911 calls, emergency medical responses, responses to fire calls where we need to assist the fire department with traffic control or anything else that they may need support with. Whoops. So communications and dispatch. These are the folks that are on the other end of the phone. They're usually the first one to receive the calls, and then it is their responsibility to dispatch these calls. So, and these obviously are a variety of calls. It could be simply a call from somebody that's seeking information to a call that's somebody who's trying to report a crime or, a medical emergency. And these are the folks that are taking the information for these calls and routing these to the appropriate responders.
Are we still using York?
Yes, we are. Yep. And then finally, we have the harbor master.
Look at it.
Well, Frank said he needed a boat. I say Frank has a boat.
So, a lot of the responsibilities here are mooring oversight and harbor regulation, as well as marine safety and environmental monitoring. He would also be a resource, in the event of an emergency. So, what's in the budget this year? So, two of the biggest drivers that we have in the budget this year for some of the increases are going to be the main law enforcement accreditation program, as well as the new CAD system. So the main law enforcement accreditation program, so this is a voluntary state level accreditation program that was developed by the Maine Chiefs of Police Association. And simply put, it's a program that shows evidence that we meet, the highest standards of professional policing and accountability.
So just to back up a minute, so this is a national accreditation program is where this started. But what the Maine Chief of Police realized was that the cost to do the national accreditation was too great for a lot of Maine municipalities. So they tried to take the international program and make it fit Maine. There's still costs and work associated with it, but you get to meet that at a much more cost-effective level.
Yes, yep. And the national accreditation system was also hard for smaller departments to achieve because of that, for a large variety of reasons. So there are some costs to us doing this program. So there is a cost of $4,500 to employ an MLEAP program manager through Dirigo Safety. Basically, this would help us, navigate our way through getting accredited. There's also a $2,500 fee for the maintenance of that program because, it's not just that we actually finally meet accreditation, but we also have to continuously maintain that. And so this fee is for the maintenance of that program. And there's a $750 annual fee to the Maine Chiefs of Police for this, as well as we do have to buy a software program that helps us maintain the records so that we can track and show that we are, maintaining those standards, and that's the Power DMS. So benefits, benefits to the program are, we have enhanced credibility with that because we can show that we're constantly meeting, a standard, a professional standard. I think it helps develop, community trust because we can show that, we're aspiring to these higher standards. Certainly with that comes accountability and transparency, reduced risk and liability. Operational improvements, professional development, and then, of course, what's really important, I think, in all of this is a peer review and the feedback. So this is one of the biggest budget drivers that we have this year as it relates to the communications side of the budget. So the current system that we have now is IMC by TriTech. And so that CAD system has been in service now since 2005. Unfortunately, the developers have gotten to a point where they're no longer going to support that. So as a result, we have to start looking for another CAD system. We had to start looking for another CAD system. As a result of that, York County decided to go out as a whole to try to buy the same system. The reason being is so that, our agencies, can all be on the same system and we can share data and access data together. So a subcommittee was kind of formed to kind of look at the products that were out there. They looked at, tested, and reviewed several products and ultimately decided on the Motorola Flex CAD system. That seemed to be the one that was going to meet everybody's needs, and so that is the one that was recommended. So the county as a whole went out to bid. There were a few nuances behind it, just because of the regional dispatch centers. So the departments that were using Sanford, for example, as their PSAP, they kind of went out together to bid on that, as well as we did with Wells, Algonquin, York, because we're all using the same PSAP as well.
And can you explain what a PSAP is to people?
It's a public service answering point. So if you dial 911, that 911 call does not come to our dispatch directly. It actually goes to the public service answering point dispatch. And so these are dispatch centers that are qualified, certified to take those 911 calls regarding,
Approved to the state of Maine.
Yep, to the state of Maine, requiring, special dispatching for fire incidents or medical events. So, and then depending on what that is, they turn around and then we would get notification from them. We would dispatch our services, yet they would keep that person on the phone and provide, initial instructions for whatever that event is that's going on. So that The Motorola FlexCAD system, originally we thought was going to be a one-time purchase. What was ultimately sent down to the agencies was a 10-year subscription. So you'll see the subscription costs in the software tech part of the communications budget. And that cost is, I don't have it right in front of me, but it's right around $50,000 a year.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Is that the entire county is gonna make that commitment?
Yes,
Okay, so
Yep.
everybody will be on the same system,
yes, yep.
and presumably, if that system doesn't end up delivering, I'm sure they've negotiated whatever they need to in terms of outs, et cetera. It's being contracted at the county level, and then we'll be a participant in that purchase.
So yes, and it's actually, it's more so at the individual PSAP levels.
Okay,
But yes, the entire county is looking at the same system.
okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the $50,000 is for each location?
So that's for our cost based on the size of our department, so the number of officers that would need to use it. So the way Motorola sent this down to the individual departments was based on size, so number of officers within the respective departments.
I about swallowed my necktie when you said it's gonna be $50,000. That seemed like a lot.
It does. So currently, I can tell you our current system is somewhere right around $32,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
So it is an increase, but unfortunately, we can't get away from the fact that we have to replace it because it just won't be supported anymore. So just another thing I wanted to touch on was staffing challenges. You know, we still continue to experience staffing challenges. This is a study that we participated in that took place, I think, back in June or July of this past year. It just shows a breakdown of, you know, what the biggest challenges were in retaining and recruiting, you know, new employees. Just to give you an example, at the end of February, I was finally at full staff, and I just lost 2 more officers last week. So, you know, we finally do get ahead, and then we seem to fall back a little. The other challenging part is to, you know, with newer officers, obviously, there's a learning curve there that, you know, we need to spend some time, you know, training these officers. So this is, you know, just a graph showing the trend since 2019, you know, where they were at full staff. And then, as you can see, during COVID, that dipped quite a bit, came back up, and of course, you know, now it's back down. Last year, we sent 2 new officers to the academy, and they did a fantastic job. But the reason I bring this up is because by the time we hire an officer, we can get their field training done and then get them off to the academy. We have almost a year into them. And so even though they are a body, they are not actively out on their own working the road. So our newest officer right now just started field training last month. We expect her to be field training until August, just before, hopefully, we can get a spot at the academy. And then she'll be at the academy from August until just before Christmas. And so I won't get her back until then. And, you know, it'll probably be another few weeks when she comes back that gets acclimated. We'll have her be with a full-time officer before we actually cut her loose, and she'll be on her own. So, you know, the training time really does set back our staffing levels as well. So these are additional items we were hoping to accomplish this year that we had to cut. We were asking a little bit more for community policing events. There were some more things that we wanted to take on. Development of the officer wellness program, and further personnel development through training and travel expenses. So, example of the community policing events that we wanted to take on. Last year we did National Night Out. It was very successful. We got a lot of positive feedback on that. And so we were looking to expand that this year and do a few more things. Coffee with a Cop, Halloween, the Goose Rocks Beach Association Child Bike Safety Program. And Haley, who is our outreach officer, has a few other things in mind as well. So we also wanted to start with the development of the Officer Wellness Program this year. So what we had intended to start with this year were individual appointments with a licensed clinical social worker and therapist who is known to specialize in public safety personnel. This is basically just to give officers an opportunity to have someone to speak with. I can say, any of these public safety jobs, there's a lot of factors, that come into influencing, officers' health, firefighters' health. It's the shift work, it's the long shifts, it's the rotating shifts, it's, lack of time with family. So there's a lot of stressors out there that can really, influence people's health. And so this is kind of just an opportunity for the officers to go and have somebody to speak to, and basically it was going to be some education on, hey, this is what to look for stress in you, for, stress in your coworkers, these are warning signs, not just for yourself, but for coworkers. And hey, if you have something more going on that you want to talk about or you want to discuss, let's bring it up, and so it was just kind of going to be a starting point for us there. So another one was further personnel development through training that incur travel expenses. Routinely now, I see a lot more coming out than I did in earlier years for training, a lot of good opportunities. Unfortunately, a lot of those opportunities come with travel expenses, hotel expenses, and even here now in-state, a lot of the times when we were able to send either officers or dispatchers to the academy for in-service training, we were able to lodge them at the academy, and it was just a small meal fee. We can't do that anymore now. They don't have the housing available for them because they're running 2 academies at the same time. So oftentimes now I have to put the dispatchers or the officers up in hotel rooms. Of course, with that come meal expenses, mileage expenses. So all that has gotten more expensive. So and then finally, so this is just a few pictures of us at various events. Obviously, this being Prelude. So obviously in previous years, when we put together our overtime budget, we kind of take into consideration these events. So, these events would be like Memorial Day, would be 4th of July for the fireworks, as well as the Goose Rocks Beach Association road race and bike parade. This would be for Prelude as well. So, moving forward, we're going to be seeking direction from the board as to, which of these, events that we're still going to continue to support. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Just a couple. So your full force is 15, you're
Yes.
down to 13.
Yes.
Do you feel that the next year's budget provides you enough wiggle room within wages if we needed to find officers and we need to pay a premium to find them?
So it depends. I mean, certainly, right now we'll probably experience, a salary and benefit savings because, these positions won't be filled for a little bit. I can tell you that, unfortunately, we have not had any applications to consider yet. So we are seeing that there is competition out there tonight. I've been looking around. There are several other agencies hiring right now. And the applicant pool is very, very shallow, so.
And just, one of those events you wanted to do was something with the bikes down at Goose Rocks Beach with the kids.
Yes.
Is that something that the Goose Rocks Beach Association, out of their funding, could pay for? I'm not looking at you to give me the answer, I'm just kind of looking around. I mean,
It's a
could we?
rhetorical question.
Right. I mean, is there a way of finding some of this money in some of the other?
Yeah, sure. I think we could have that discussion. You know, one of the safety concerns that it was brought up by the beach committee were, you know, the kids on the bicycles, you know, in years past, and I mean, this is 30 years ago when I started, we used to put on a bike safety program down there for them. That kind of had gone by the wayside, but, you know, it'd be a good opportunity, one, for us to, you know, be involved with the community, but two, you know, hopefully provide some safety training for the kids and, you know, calm some of those concerns that we have down at the beach.
Chris, how does Kennebunkport stack up with the other communities in York County as far as reported incidences, et cetera?
Sure. So I guess the easiest way, Dan, would probably be just overall calls for service. So certainly we're a smaller community. We still have calls for service, you know, that, you know, need to be handled. But it depends, right? So, you know, you have several communities that don't have police departments in which state police or York County Sheriff's Department handles those. Certainly we have Biddeford, we have Sanford, which are two much larger departments that are very busy departments. And then we have, you know, departments like next door with Kennebunk and Wells. So I would say we're kind of on par with Kennebunk and Wells, you know, in a lot of the coastal towns.
For robberies and whatever.
Well, no, I would say that, you know, as far as those violent crimes, we do very well. You know, we don't experience a lot of that here. Certainly they do happen at times, but we're fortunate enough to live in a community where we don't have a lot of that.
When your thing, what you showed us was police and dispatch calls like 13,000 a year. So that's about 35 a day? Is that about?
I haven't done the math.
Well, I just did the math, so I'm just saying that's 35 calls you have to respond to at some point during the day.
Sure.
And that probably fluctuates?
It does. So obviously in the summer months, you know, tend to be our busier months. So obviously it'd be more calls than that during the day, just because, you know, our population goes up tenfold, so.
I'd like to just focus our thoughts a little bit on the on the overtime work, the special event support that your officers are doing. When I look at Prelude, if I take the 2 tree lightings and the 2 parades, it's on the order of $23,000, and that doesn't include the time and money that's spent just in preparing for that. Could you say a little bit about what that overtime is in addition to their normal work hours, correct?
Yes, it is, yeah. So this would be, you know, and it depends on the detail, the times of the detail, which officers are currently working, but just to give you some idea, so Memorial Day, July 4th, and the Prelude events are all hands on deck, so everybody's working. So, you know, you may have officers that are working the road, but that is their responsibility while the detail's going on, and then everybody else is brought in on overtime to deal with the detail.
Now, you used the word detail, but you're using that with a small d. There's a capital D detail, which is an extra fee that folks can pay, like if I wanted to have one of your officers at a family wedding, I could pay a detail rate, which provides the officer a little more income for those hours that they spend.
Yes, correct. So those details, though, in particular, would be details that we are billing back out to those entities. So that does not come as a cost to the town under the overtime budget. So, you know, the the overtime costs of the town that come down, during Memorial Day Parade, July 4th, or, Prelude, that is taxpayer funded.
And July 4th, to me, I certainly can see that as a community event and something that I think the residents would be willing to have their taxes go to. I'm just wondering, as I look at this expense, $23,000, again, plus some additional 5,000 plus just in the police side for the prep. If I were to look at those events as something that might want to be more on a detail pay, where the resident taxpayer is not picking up that bill, then perhaps KBA, through their work with the business community, might find it to pay the detail rate for those officers. That provides them, and as I understand it, the officers that are from Kennebunk or from other places are receiving something more than we're able to pay our officers if we do it under this overtime only piece, right?
That is correct.
And that strikes me as a little unfair. So I would like to propose that we do some thinking about whether we wanted to look at asking the Prelude activities to be picked up as a detail fee by the business association, which in my thinking is the principal benefit of Prelude, and certainly of these events. So that's something I think we ought to put in our thinking.
What is, if I was to hire one of your officers for a private event, what is the detail rate that we charge?
Currently by contract, it's $60 an hour.
And what is the detail off, do you know
Plus
what
an
the?
administrative fee.
So about 60, 65 bucks?
It comes out about 100 when you do the fringe and everything else.
Right.
And how does that compare to other communities that we're hiring to come and do details in town?
So currently, this past year, Wells billed us out, their officers were at $100 an hour for detail rate of pay.
Plus their administrative fee
Plus,
was
so-
$125.
$125
So
an hour.
basically, we're still paying our folks less, and this is something that perhaps we can look at a negotiation with the union to increase that fee, so we're more in line with what Kennebunk and Wells are receiving as detail feds, and that's something else we can look at. That does not again affect our budget, our line. This is rather a fee that is paid when they're contracting a service of one of our officers, if I understand it correctly.
That's correct, yeah.
So what do we think is so John, going back, you were saying it was 23 plus what it was, where are we with the number for, Prelude? It would be 23 plus what?
Well, as I think of it, we would probably be, I don't know if we'd be taking on the pre-work or not, whether that would be detail or part of the normal, but it would be something on the order of $23,000 less expense than we have normally incurred, because we were paying that again as overtime to our officers. So they would now be covered, if we move forward with this, with the request that KBA pick up the detailed rate for the officers, then that $23,000 would not be an expense against the residents' taxpayers' bottom line.
Larry, can I just, this though isn't just the police department. This is the other departments adding up.
And that is very true. That is very true. But it's the same story. These fees, again, can be done rather than overtime through a contract vehicle.
It's my understanding this is already in the budget, though.
It's currently in the budget.
Okay, so this is not a question that this is something additional to
That's-
approve. There is already, these monies are already in the budget.
However, we could take them out of the
That's,
budget.
that's true. I would say that if you were thinking of entertaining some of the expenses that you'll hear having to be cut,
Yeah.
you might think of these funds.
Yeah, I thank you. Appreciate it.
I know that Tina's here, I didn't know if you wanted to.
Tina, thank you. Please, and I
Yeah.
would be grateful.
I think I just had one question from Bob.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Chief, question, maybe it's premature, but the bus thing. I know that's a real topic for you guys.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Bus thing?
Is there money to be put in that budget, or how's that gonna be handled if you end up having to put staffing there to address that, which is one of the options I heard.
So nothing is settled.
I understand.
You know, the idea is proposed that we would actually, as the buses are making a reservation, they would be paying a fee into the system that would offset some of those costs, considering how many buses come in. Once we figure out how many buses we can handle, you can multiply that, proposed right now at $50 a bus. I think we'd have to look at that as we go forward. We'll have in conversations. So I think there's money that will be made from that,
So it's
assuming we
offset.
adopt it.
So that would be added as an
That would probably,
addendum to the budget
that
or
would
something?
be similar to those other funds, so it would be like a special revenue fund. So we'd need the revenue coming in, so it would probably be associated with the Dock Square parking lot
Parking
fund.
lot is where they would.
And then those fees would pay for the expense, would be the goal.
Okay.
Because the Dock Square parking lot will also go to now visitor services.
Hey, before we lose Chief, can I ask him a quick question?
Please.
Okay, going back to your chart of the biggest challenges for recruitment, you had, the second highest was competition from larger departments. And so is it people looking for towns that have more things going on, or how do I read that?
Sure, so, larger departments, tend to be, tend to have more resources. They also tend to have or offer more specialties. One example that comes to mind might be a K-9 officer, somebody that really wants to be a K-9 officer. K-9 program is extremely expensive. You need to have, a need for that program. Here in town, I don't have that need. That's an example of a program that a larger department could offer, that somebody might find attractive.
They also might offer a wellness program.
Correct.
And Chief, do we have any, so I noticed like some of the new hires and stuff have been, younger recruits, and you're sending them to training. Did we lose a pool of people that were looking to sort of retire from a heavy-duty police force, come into a little quieter area? Is that sort of pool of people dried up?
It has, or at least I'm not seeing them, via application to us. I think in general, there's just a smaller pool of applicants that really want to go into this line of work.
Thank you.
Tina? Yeah.
You guys are way taller than I am. Good evening. My name is Tina Hewitt-Gordon. I'm the general manager at the Nonantum. I want to thank you for taking the time and the opportunity to allow me to speak. I'm actually talking tonight, though, with the president of the Kennebunkport Business Association hat on. So first of all, I don't want to take up too much time because I know that there's a lot on this agenda. The Business Association certainly recognizes that the size of this event brings a lot of impact. It includes traffic congestion, noise, and a strain on the town resources, as you're hearing right now from the chief. But Prelude brings in 2 really high-traffic weekends, and it provides the revenue that sustains so many local businesses and jobs throughout the winter. In 2024 alone, there were 276 businesses in Kennebunkport, which is a 21% growth in the last 10 years. And that's a growth of over 207 jobs, and it added about $11 million in wages. I worked with the state of Maine on a study to say, what does Prelude do for the economy, not only in Kennebunkport, York County, the Beach region, but also throughout the state of Maine. And it compared it to the revenues from the past 40 days. In accommodations alone, there was a 369% increase in spending in accommodations. Restaurant spending was 75% increased, and retail spending was up by 8%. As I said, to the last 40 days. Prelude really does attract an older demographic and is more likely to have children, have higher household incomes, and is sort of the person that would be destined to live here in Kennebunkport. As we know, Kennebunkport's a tourist town, and it also has an incredible housing market. Prelude itself is an organization that has 121 businesses, and we are 100% volunteer driven. And Prelude last year cost the Business Association $63,000, all of which was paid for through membership and sponsorships. The greenery alone for the town and the tree decorating cost around $6,800. We also spent last year $8,000 to upgrade the electrical that was at the monument, not to mention the hundreds of man-hours by volunteers of putting up all the decorations and tearing all of them down to make our town so beautiful. The reason I say all of this is Prelude makes such a huge impact, and I realize that it is a big strain on the resources here in Kennebunkport, but I just want to point out what it really means to this whole town. The nonprofits alone listed in our guide, there were 35 of them. I've received numbers back from at least 20, and that was $186,694 that is directly attributed for funds that they were able to generate directly associated with those 4 days of Prelude, obviously leaving out the midweek. Not to mention all the countless in-kind donations that all these nonprofits receive because of the work that the individual businesses do. Let's talk about workforce for a second. There's 17, I sent out a survey to our membership. I received 17 back. And of those 17 businesses, there were 348 employees that worked through Prelude, many of which would, the business would close early or have further layoffs if it weren't for Prelude. I know this is a budget meeting, and so as a representative of KBA, we came to the town wanting to, because we understand the disparity between the wages that are paid to our resources. We really do want to offset that cost. We don't think that it should be a burden to the taxpayers, and we want to be sure that our offices are making an appropriate amount of money. Last year, actually 2 years ago, I had a wonderful meeting with Lori and with the other town manager from Kennebunk, and they laid out that there were some additional costs that were going to be incurred because we simply didn't have enough officers and personnel to be able to make sure that Prelude could be safe. So last year, the Business Association paid for all of those additional officers, which was about $13,000, because we certainly don't want the taxpayers to have that be a burden to the budget at all. Moving forward, I realize that Prelude is a costly endeavor for sure. We have offered to pay this differential, which is an offer that we will continue to make. We don't want it to be a burden to the taxpayers, but we are also working on some guardrails and some measures to take a look at easing some of the burden that it is placing on the town. There's these 4 road closures that have to be dealt with. So we had a meeting earlier today to talk about, how we can work on it, and we are working on it, but we need some time. And so my request here today is to just say to you, I realize that this is a really big decision for the town, but it's a really big decision that will affect so many other entities and it cause a ripple effect if it's not done carefully and thoughtfully. For instance, if we're talking about making these changes for this coming year, I can speak for the Nonantum. The first weekend of Prelude, we're already sold out 73%. The second weekend, we're at 25%. I was speaking with a couple of our board members who own retail shops. They've already placed all of their orders for Prelude for this year, or for the end of the year, anticipating that they're going to have the same amount of volume as in years past. So I'm not suggesting that change doesn't need to be made, but I'm just asking to be sure that, we're a part of the process and that it's done thoughtfully and with input from not only the residents, but the businesses and obviously the town officials as well. So in conclusion, Prelude is a sales opportunity, unlike anything else for the rest of the year. That opportunity allows businesses to survive through the ups and downs, the rain and the shine, the rest of the year, and it really is a competitive advantage for the town. The commercial district is a very tight-knit community within a tight-knit town. They support and also do business with each other, and taking away Prelude, and I'm not suggesting that you're asking us to cancel Prelude, I understand you're not, okay, realize that. But we don't want to reverse this growth and unwind the network. The needs of the residents and having a business center that fits and aligns with the values of the town is important, but these can be accomplished through smaller changes to policy, and it just shouldn't be done in a hurried manner with input from, just a small number of residents, but the representation from the residents' businesses and town officials. So.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, knowing that the Business Association is certainly very willing to absorb some of these costs and to be, but please just let us be a part of the conversation.
Boy, you bet. And this, again, there may be some future discussions about the number of events, size of events, what have you, but this discussion is just about this overtime pay that was being paid. And, and I'm glad that business has been increasing, and hopefully that will make it agreeable for KBA to look to pick up these costs so that we can have equality across the board. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And as I said, we would 100% agree with picking up these costs.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So I don't know if anybody has any more questions for me. No?
I don't really have a lot of thunder to bring tonight, but I just wanted to point out that Galen stole a little of mine, and so did Chris. You're gonna hear a little bit of the same theme on some things. And again, not like thunder, more like a light drizzle.
You should have come dressed up like Galen.
I don't own a suit. So.
Well, asbestos suit.
All right, so, yep. Need the old man goggles, and we should be good. So this is just like the rest, a brief snapshot of where the fire department is. We did 344 calls for service, which is a decrease from 24, but basically it's the same if you took away the storm calls from 24's total. We'd be right around 345 last year, or for 24, sorry. Our calls have been going up. 2022 was the first year over 300 ever, and it's been that way for those 3 years. This year, thank goodness, has started off much, much quieter. So we're not on pace to even keep up to the 340, but that will change in the summer. We have 28 interior firefighters, which is up from last year. We're probably gonna have that number will be 30 before the end of June. I have 2 firefighters in a class that are getting their credentials currently, so that's a plus. We've never had that many. There we go. So our org chart is there's myself and a fire administrator. I have 3 deputy chiefs that are in charge of different sections of town. And below each deputy chief, there's a captain and a lieutenant. And then the 70 or so volunteers that we all make up as the department. Come on, sunshine. There we go. So on my programs, again, we're talking about E911 street addressing. I'm responsible for that as the addressing officer for the town. What it means is that everything gets an address and it has to meet certain guidelines to be accepted into the E911 system. Roads, we have to name them when there's new roads to go in. It can't sound the same as other roads and a whole bunch of other things, and we work through that to make sure that we don't have that happen. I don't spend a terrible amount of time on this as far as my programs go. This is the one I spend 90% of my time on. So, and it's not just the fire calls, even though a couple of these pictures are cool, but it's that there's all the time spent planning for it and maintaining things and training people and keeping things ready to go. So, you know, it would be great if, you know, we talk about the crystal ball, if you had one, and I knew that at 5 minutes after 8, there was gonna be a fire and a couch cushion at this house, we'd be there at 10 minutes of. But we don't have that, so we have to make sure there's always 100% readiness, and that's 90% of my job. Again, quick, we went over this bit, but we're up over time, but the storms in 23 and 24 would have brought that number down, but it still would have been very similar to 2025. This is talking about the different calls that we go on, where things are. Just real quick, the green bar is for our fire calls, with everything except a structure fire. So it could be a car fire, outside fire, anything like that. The red bar is only structure fires. And when you look at how it's been thicker over the last 4 years, some of it is in just the reporting as well. If you have a pot that you catch on fire in your house and you call the fire department, but the fire does not leave that pot, it's still a building fire because it's a fire that occurred inside the structure.
Change the classification.
Yeah. Whoops. Come on now. I don't want to be done that. No, I actually do want to be done this quick. So another program that we do is fire code enforcement, life safety type inspections. Again, piggyback off of Galen a little bit is when we're doing subdivisions. We're looking at things. I'm part of that team along with others in town to make sure that the things that we need are met, so that a subdivision goes in and the roads are big enough to accommodate our trucks and turning them around and things like that. But then making sure that businesses and hotels and things like that have their sprinkler systems are being checked quarterly, their fire extinguishers are ready to go and checked and all that good stuff. Another part of my job in a program is emergency management planning. This is usually for any emergency. It's for any emergency, but most of the time it's going to be natural and in nature. Lassoing, floating LP tanks all over town, things like that. Leaking, by the way, because when they ripped off from the house, the valves were open. And another program is we have a public safety and education and a community outreach team. These are things that we do, like going to Consolidated to talk to the kids about fire prevention. If you recognize the top from the right, somebody in there that's sitting here. What we do is we put the teacher in turnout gear, and then we walk them into the room, because we're teaching the little kids especially not to be afraid of firemen, don't hide from us. And then we'll slowly take it off and they realize who it is and they go bonkers. But it's a lesson that they learn of not being scared of us. We have a ski team that raises money for the Try for a Cure, the pink t-shirts for breast cancer awareness. They give money towards that by selling the shirts. things like that. We'll go anywhere if a group calls or a business and wants some help with any type of training, like fire extinguishers or things like that, we'll go and do that. So some of our budget increases are looking at the additional hours for the fire chief aren't necessarily for me, because if you haven't heard, I'm retiring on May 1st. But it's more for when looking for my replacement, having the ability to, if somebody, I haven't worked 40 hours a week since I started, I haven't wanted to. So the town was nice enough to do that for me. But if someone else coming in wanted that, or the town as a whole decides they want it, that we put some additional money in to cover that. We have increased calls, our hours have gone up. Over the last 3 years, especially with more calls, but there's more training that we pay for. There's some meetings that we pay for, things like that. And our trainings, like Fire 1 and 2, which is the two people that are going to be interior qualified I spoke about, those classes now are $1,250 each per pupil whenever they do it. They offer it, in York County, they offer it once a year. And so those costs are going up, but it's still, comparatively to what I see in other places of the world for doing the same type of training, it's a good deal. Another one of my budget increases is some equipment for $20,000. On the left side of the picture with the cute little arrows, that's called a rural hitch valve. I'd like to put these on the trucks. What we do with these is when we have a fire in a building that is way off the main road, a lot of our private lanes and things like that are 2,000 feet in or something like that, we'll lay the supply line where it's got a clapper inside that, so we can have two trucks pumping into it, but it's usually kind of one at a time. And so while one's pumping, when that one's finished, the other one starts pumping. And while the second truck is pumping, now a third truck is taking the place of the first truck. And we just usually can get a good continuous water supply to the fire scene from thousands of feet away. So that would be putting one of these on our engines so that we have it. The problem I run into is I can't say, well, we're gonna buy one and we're gonna keep it here. Unfortunately, there may not be people available to take that truck out to that particular call. And then we're upgrading our nozzles. They're aging out, and a lot of the time when we go to use them, they're not functioning properly.
Alan, did you have any questions about those?
What'd you say?
I said, did you have any questions about those? I know you had questions about the rural hitch hose.
No, Chief answered them.
Great.
See that? Karnak the Magnificent. So what's not in the budget is the call wages were reduced a little bit. Again, we're putting a number at something we have no control over. How many calls, how many people show up, how much we pay because of the number of calls or people that show up. But like the police chief, a wellness program for my members. So I just want to talk about that for a second. This to me was pretty cheap money for what it is. So I found by accident a company out in California. The woman that started it, her husband was a police officer, and she saw firsthand the things that her husband went through and others, their friends that were on the department too, mental health wise, for the things that they see. I've been doing this job since I was 15 years old. One of my top 3 worst calls in my whole career, well, it was in Arundel, but I was there representing this town. So it doesn't matter, it's not big city stuff and things like that. It's things that stick with people, and we worry about their mental health. And so this company would provide they can be so big that when the call comes in, because of the way the call is coded, it could be triggered to okay, we need to talk to these 7 people that went on this call. I'm not looking for that, that's 20+ thousand a year. I was looking for, it was 4,300, there's a $1,500 charge for the first, extra charge for training and setting it up for the first year. And then it's just under $2,900 for the next 5 years. There would be a clause in it that if the funding didn't happen or I decided it wasn't what we wanted, we're not on the hook for it, it goes by annual appropriation. But what it gives the member, the firefighter, is the ability through their phone, so it's private. The only feedback I get on anybody is that I'd get a monthly thing saying, 7 people used it this month, and here's what they used it for. Not specifics, but it was a mental health issue, or it was my wife wants, or husband wants a divorce. You know, it can be used for other stressors in everyday life as well. But it gives them in the palm of their hand the ability to talk to somebody and get in touch with clinicians that are close by that can help them out, and get them, you know, the help they need to feel better, to be a more productive person, and just in life, but also for the department, and feel protected when they go out the door and they see some nasty stuff, that there's some place they can go.
Those 3 events you had, this would have meant a difference to you?
I think it certainly could have meant a difference to some other people over those, yes. And I was working the night of Noy Street in Portland.
And how much were you looking for this that you took out?
So it's 2,800, just under 29, and the first year there's an added $1,500 for the setup and training. So 4383 for the first year, and 2883 for the 5 years after.
And
Each year.
Yeah.
And you have no other wellness program that offered to these folks?
No, I don't, not anything like this, no. And the last thing I want to say about this is this is, like I said, a much bigger thing, where they would have charged us 10 times that 2 through 5 year rate. But they're scaling it way down for us, to a point of it's just over $100 a year per person, and I put that we could be comfortable at 60. They don't have a clicker with how many people within the department, because our numbers go up and down. But they discounted it heavily to try to see if they could make it work in a department like ours, especially because you don't know who's coming to the calls and things like that. Yeah.
So a question, I don't know if it's Lori or Chief, but if it's not in the budget, it says, right? But if we want to make a recommendation to go in the budget, when do we do that? Now?
You can do it whenever's before you vote on the final budget. But yeah, that's what we're looking for, is conversation about.
I've lived with something like this in my banking career, and I had HRs, and it was really invaluable. I think that's surprising we haven't had it before, actually.
Is this the same vendor that we're proposing for the police department as well? Is it one?
So the funny thing
same
is
vendor, one package?
Chris and I did not talk about this in our budgets. This happened. It's not the same.
Okay.
This is focused more for mental health, and it sounded like Chris's was a little more than that.
Okay, but they're basically EAP programs for first
Yeah,
responders.
that's what
essentially.
yes.
So eventually it could be the same vendor at some point, if you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I came across this company, called them up, talked to them.
I got it.
Yeah.
This type of thing isn't covered under your health insurance?
It,
I mean, don't we have?
So we have health insurance for our full-time employees, but our on-call firefighters don't have insurance, so they're not covered under it.
it would only end up being a workers' comp type, if some, you know. So this is trying to get them the help before it goes too far, or, you know.
I think this is a proactive,
Yes.
right? I think this is the minimum that the town can do for both the police department and the fire department, is to provide adequate, we used to call it in corporations, special health services or EAP programs, that there's ability to quickly and confidentially reach out if you have an issue or you need to talk to somebody or you need to get some help. And I think the money that we're talking about here is not significantly gonna move the needle, you know, mill rate wise or anything, so.
So Chief?
Yes.
Can we, to go back to that question about who provides the service, I guess I'm confused on what Chief Simonello presented versus what you just took us through. So could, it sounded like if somebody was having a problem, they could, you know, they would call, or even when Chief Simeon was presenting it to us, they were going through this thing to realize signs, and so it was more proactive. It was proactive also. So we would still, I guess my question is, we couldn't just do one of them. One won't work for both departments.
Well, that's a question.
I don't know, because I don't know enough about Chris's, and Chris doesn't know enough about mine, because we hadn't talked about this. I'm certainly willing to look into that and see if there's a cost savings, maybe what
Well,
Chris
not
has.
so much a cost savings, but it might just be I don't know. I don't know. If
Right,
one is
well,
more
that it would make more
So
sense.
let's have Chief Simeone come talk. The two programs are different in that Chief Simeone's for police is about an annual visit with each officer, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So it'd be an annual visit with the officer. It's kind of a touch point. First one was meant to be educational regarding, you know, the signs of stress, both in yourself and in coworkers. But it was kind of also an open door, invitation. So, you know, after they establish a rapport, you know, hopefully that officer would feel comfortable if there is something going on that either myself or other coworkers aren't aware of, that they would feel comfortable discussing that, you know, and that would be the start to, you know, providing services if we needed to.
And because those people are full-time employees, we can make it a part of their employment that they go every year. With the on-call firefighters, it is a very different employee relationship. And so Chief Everett was looking at something that is available to them on a personal basis when they need it, correct?
Correct.
All right, I just have to clarify what Chief Simeon just said, but after their first engagement, and if they got into a bind and they felt they needed some support, they would be able to reach out. They would go to get some service, right? Get some support.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear that this individual isn't necessarily going to be providing those services, but he would be kind of that initial point of contact, and then we would set that officer up with services subsequent to that meeting if that's what that officer wanted.
So you're, Chief, you don't have it in your budget. You've taken it out of your budget. How much is yours?
It was $3,000.
So that was taken out of the budget?
Yes, that was
No,
one of
but
the things.
it's not in the proposed
I understand,
budget.
the proposed budget.
Yeah.
So to get back to my feeling, I think they both should have it. I don't know how we add that or mark it and revisit or.
We need to step back, we look at everything
Yeah,
as
we
a
could-
whole, but
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
I think they're both very.
I would
important.
underline that as an important thing to reconsider.
consider as we go forward, yeah. I mean, that's my opinion.
It's a
It's
small
not- it's
price.
not-
I agree.
We could,
Yeah.
we could find money somewhere else if we had.
Less than 10 grand.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Yep.
I have another question for you.
Sure.
You have 3 department chiefs, or,
I have 3 district
District
chiefs,
chiefs.
yep.
but we have 4 fire stations. Are we not counting Wiles District anymore?
No, Wiles District and Cape are one district,
Okay.
and then here and Goose Rocks are the other 2.
So do we actually have people that work out of Wiles District Station, and
Yep.
we have trucks there, and
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
it's functional?
It is.
They came to my house last year.
Quite often, the first one's out,
Is that right?
Yeah.
Good for him.
quite often.
Good for them.
Anything else? All right. I think
Jay, I'm
that-
gonna ask you to just be the man at the booth.
All right.
So next we have emergency management, which is still Jay. On page 185, you have this in your budget. I don't know if we have anything.
No,
else
I
for
think
this.
this is the only, yeah.
Yeah, so, emergency management, we put, $1,500 a year in. If we do not spend it that year, we put it in a reserve fund. I think we have around $10,000 or $12,000 in our reserve fund, so it's not great money. But if it happens that we have to open an emergency shelter or pay for food or things of that nature, that's where that funding would come from, so we don't, put it in, in a year that we think we might need it. We just put a little in each year and keep it for when it's needed. Do you have anything to?
No, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, obviously, it's there, the 1,500 is there to use should the need arise, but then when it doesn't, it's still gonna be used for the same function, because with the partnership with Kennebunk and opening shelters, at some point, we may need to buy more cots, because they've gotten broken or kind of timed out their usefulness, things like that. That money could be used there, and we're not going back after more.
But it's accumulated to over 10,000 right now in the fund, right? So it stays, it keeps growing.
Yeah, so if I don't spend any of this 1,500 at the end of the fiscal year, it'll go into that account, so it's there for sheltering or food or
Or if
hotel.
if that year we need more than 1,500, we take the balance from the reserve
Yeah.
account.
And we haven't used any this year.
No.
Not yet,
Okay,
not
well, knock
on
on wood.
plastic.
Is there any way that we can charge contractors who work in structures and never think about covering smoke detectors for the third time in the same daggone building?
Well, I'm not, just because we've gone there 3 times, it's not always the same thing. And so I'm reluctant to do it, just because, like, we went to an address that's under, a motel that's under renovation for many times.
Right.
But this time they had the detectors covered, but the dust still got in there and set it off. So there's no hard and fast way to say, well, I'm gonna charge you for this one, but I'm not gonna charge you for this one. I'm hoping that the people will take their fire alarm system down during the day while they're there, and should be awake, working, and then turn it back on before they go home. Because then if we get a call, similarly to after they were done at an establishment last month,
Right.
we actually had a fire, but it came in as a fire alarm in a building that's being renovated that we've been to a bunch. And I opened up a door on the 3rd floor, went and, oh, hey.
It's real smoke, it's real.
So it would be nice, you'd think you could generate some revenue, but it's really not gonna generate you a whole lot, and I think it has a negative connotation to it. And there's too much leeway in who decides and which ones they decide. I'm charging you for this one, but not this one. I've just, I don't think it's worth the squeeze.
Any other questions for Chief Everett?
Nope.
If not, I'm gonna have Chief Simeone come back up
Thank you.
Tag team.
Tag team.
and be in charge of the clicker. So we are going to animal control, which is the next page on page 189. So do you want to just give them an overview of our animal control budget?
So currently, we subcontract out our animal control services through an animal control officer that currently services a bunch of towns. We have seen an increased need for her in the past year. Not sure what the explanation is, but, for our calls regarding domestic animals as well as farm animals. So in that budget, there's a series of line items. Some of those are for mileage that we have to pay her when she comes out to respond to calls. You know, certainly there's her fee that we subcontract her out. And
The last item is the contract we have with Animal Welfare
Fair
Society.
Society.
So one of the state requirements is that we have a contract to deal with stray animals. And so our contract is with Animal Welfare.
And it's based, you said it's based on the census?
It's based on population, yeah.
That's nice.
So we may not actually use it, but we have to pay for it.
About
Just to-
50 per head.
Okay.
Yeah, I am very thankful to the Animal Welfare Society. I used to be manager in Booth Bay Harbor, and people were bringing seagulls to the shelter all the time, and I was getting bills from the vet who were trying to fix these seagulls. And I said, stop! So we've had a good relationship with Animal Welfare. Next is Harbor Master. So as the chief said, Harbor Master is under the police. Do you want to click one more slide over? So we have two harbor masters. They're at the top of the left-hand corner. Frank Orr is the harbor master and pier manager at Cape Porpoise. And on the right is Jamie House, who is the harbor master for the Kennebunk River. So in the harbor master budget, you'll see salaries and wages. That is 20% of the salaries and benefits for our pier manager. So 80% of those costs are covered in the enterprise fund for the pier budget, and that was paid by user fees and the lease at the Chowder House. And then 20% are, we consider, his harbor master duties. Jamie works actually for the town of Kennebunk. We have a cooperative agreement with Kennebunk, and we split Jamie's costs 50-50 for the harbor master duties in the Kennebunk River. You can see some facts here about, we actually have two piers, so one at Government Wharf that Jamie oversees, and then Cape Porpoise Pier where Frank oversees. We have the number of moorings in both Cape Porpoise Harbor as well as Kennebunk River, and then of course we have fuel sales at Cape Porpoise Pier. Kennebunk collects all the mooring fees for the Kennebunk River, and they keep them in a reserve account for when we need to do the harbor master boat in the river upgrades, or when we had to do the dredging project or things of that nature. And then we collect the mooring fees in the Cape Porpoise Harbor, and those go towards the enterprise fund for Cape Porpoise. Any questions on that? If not, that is the end of our presentations for tonight. And so certainly if anybody has any feedback or questions or things they want to cover, otherwise we will plan on being back here next Thursday and talking about the rest of the operational budget. And Public Works will be the big superstar at that meeting.
So, April, would you wish to adjourn your folks, or see if there's any questions or discussion?
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to ask a question.
Please, please.
Rather than say that somebody will be punished when they don't bring their foot cushion back, could we perhaps leave the cushions in a different spot
Absolutely.
here?
Yeah, do we have a box still?
We'll stack
We
them
have
in
a
the
box
closet.
and you can stack them up.
Okay.
Because they are good, huh? I mean,
They
it
are
does
good.
make a
Oh,
hell of a
you could put it on your chain and just bring it around town and use it wherever you're sitting.
You're right, Dave.
And the,
Well, I appreciate it, it made a big difference.
My tush appreciates it.
Is that in the budget?
Okay, back to my motion, do I hear a motion? Carol Cook moved in, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Okay.
could I entertain a motion? from the board?
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, second, first, second, we're all, thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
That's great, it's very interesting.